Hi everyone, and welcome back to Gold Penguins Meet the Founder podcast. I'm Wes, your host, and today we're joined by Dan, who's the founder of Tango. How are you doing, Dan?
Great, Wes. How you doing?
I'm good. Yeah, not too bad. Where are you coming in from today, Dan?
I'm calling in from Santa Monica in Los Angeles, where it's just finally started getting sunny for the summer. And yeah.
Ideal. Are you from Santa Monica originally, or did you sort of move there for work, or what's the story there?
I did move out here actually as part of Tango. I'm from outside of Boston originally. So my character toughened up growing up in the Northeast, and then I got really soft really quickly and came out to LA. But one of my co-founders, Brian, he's out here. And so we get together, we're all a remote company, but we get together on the weekends and get lunch and just talk about bigger picture stuff.
Do you miss Boston much?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up there and went to college in New England, and we actually, the three of us, spent a year together at Harvard Business School, and so there's a lot of gravity in my life there, just as far as people and places that were important to me, but having a blast exploring also.
Okay, just so the audience can get a bit of info about you. What sort of things do you do in your free time under the Californian sun? Do you get out and about quite a lot, or how do you spend your free time?
Really try and take advantage of the outdoors. I mean, it's what's awesome about LA. So I do any kind of game I can, basketball, beach volleyball, get out there and exercise and move around. And, what's part of what makes LA so awesome is just interesting people from all bouts of life. And I'd say the B2B tech scene isn't quite as established, but when there's good opportunities to meet up folks, kind of in that realm, that's always great. But it's really just fun to just, meet other people, hear about their lives, hear about their ambitions, their motivations. And, before you know it, there ends up being something related that you can work together on or some cool connection. So it's important to get out there when you're somewhere like this.
I can imagine. In terms of sort of more your professional life then, where did the idea for Tango first come around? Is it sort of more in your past career, you've worked on similar tools, or tell us a bit about how sort of it developed and changed over time?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, three of us co-founders, and, we started spending time together as friends, and we really just enjoyed talking about things that motivate us, things that we thought were interesting, kind of big juicy problems out there that were going to matter in the world. And whether that ended up leading to a startup or not was never kind of the original intention, but it felt like important conversation worth having. And so having curious conversation was kind of where it all started with people you respect and care about. And then we had this one observation one day that just learning on the job kind of sucks, just like getting good at what you do takes a long time. And yeah, all of us had sort of careers going on in different industries. And, one thing that just seemed really prevalent was like, hey, that time to mastery where, you're really contributing, you're really making an impact in what you do day to day can like take over a year. And, why is that? So that's what got us curious. And, we started spending more time doing discovery and more time just thinking about the shape of that problem. And, ultimately we got actually Brian, who's my co-founder out here in LA. He had this idea of Twitch for work. What if you could actually just watch and learn from what the best people do, especially on their computer all day. And there's something captivating about that idea. It's sort of like easy one to throw out on its face because it's like, okay, yeah, you can't broadcast company IP to the world, right? There's all kinds of sensitive data, but there's something compelling there about taking that process, that formula that, really kind of artists of their field had figured out, whether it was bankers doing their models or designers in their Figma files and trying to unpack that so everybody could learn from it. And that's kind of what got us down the road to Tango.
Very interesting. Do you live with the other co-founders, or are they sort of nearby? How does that work?
Yeah. So, we started this kind of summer 2020, right after the pandemic hit. And, that kind of made what we were working on all of a sudden more important. And we had no idea if we're going to be remote and all live together, do whatever. We probably definitely imagined, I think, all being in an office, at some point when the world returned to normal. But we got started remote just by out of necessity. And we're going to do LA because we're like, you know what? Everybody's going to move down from San Francisco. Like nobody wants to be there during the pandemic. Everybody's going to want to go to Southern California, right? It'll be more fun. So we kind of had that in our minds, but we started hiring people remotely. And then Ken actually went to Chicago. It was easier for him to be with more of his family there. So Brian and I are in LA, Ken's in Chicago, and then Tango's in 16 states and 4 different countries. And, it's all over the place.
I can imagine Southern California is not a bad place to be if the pandemic hits either.
It's not. That was part of the bet.
Sweeten the deal. Just to give our audience a bit more of a sort of overview of the tool then, could you maybe summarize what Tango is and who it's for?
Yeah, so Tango helps anybody create how-to guides, documentation in a matter of seconds. And so if you're in a training role or, you do enablement for a large team, you need to teach people how to use software. That's a core part of your job or, core part of a project you're working on, then Tango is perfect for you. And, that said, that can extend we've seen people using it to teach their grandparents, how to log into email or, send a loved one like a itinerary for a trip and walk them through, different components of the trip.
Okay.
But that core use case is teaching people how to use software with how-to guides. And we now have an interactive walkthrough feature that extends the documentation into your screen.
It's really interesting you mentioned the sort of Twitch for business concept, because as you said, the main use case, but then you have the sort of personal aspects as well that, you can just give anyone a walkthrough in a few seconds if you need to. So I can imagine it's such a useful tool. The question on everyone's lips, though, I can imagine for those watching, is how are you making money from Tango?
Yeah, so we did launch it as a completely free tool originally, and part of the idea there was just, hey, we knew that if we built something people loved and they used it a lot, it'd be easier to introduce power user features and larger company features, down the road that people would be happy to pay for. And that's a model that Slack and Notion and Figma and a lot of these PLG or bottoms up companies, followed pretty successfully. By nature of our product, pretty quickly, people were like, why is this free? You're taking screenshots of everything I'm doing. And what are you doing with that? How are you making money? So we quicker than anticipated released a paid plan that gave you some extra branding functionality, I think was the first feature. And have since iterated on that. And so we have a power user, a credit card. It's our pro plan. That's anywhere between $16 and $20 a month. And then we do have a bigger plan for enterprises that has single sign-on and, more security and training and that full package, which is more expensive.
I can imagine how sort of powerful word of mouth would have been, because, if you're sat there and someone's giving you a tutorial, I think, what is this software? How can I get it? How can I use it? So could you walk us through a bit more about when it was a free tool, let's say, the different stages of, monthly users? How did it sort of grow over time?
Yeah. And I should have mentioned, we still have, most of our users are still free. So we still have that really generous free plan, but yeah, people, come in, typically find us through about 40-50% is coworker word of mouth. And we originally launched on Product Hunt, which is sort of a early adopter community for really kind of tech focused software, I'd say. And did well there. A bunch of people picked us up, and I think we got to 20,000 users in 2 weeks, which is a great start.
And not bad numbers.
Then we started having some people share Tango as a tool with their communities. So sort of the whole user generated content, creator space across TikTok, Instagram, which we never would have expected, starting this. We're like, wait, people are going to find software, on social media. But that kind of happened on its own, fortunately. And we were able to learn from it. And now it's, one of our biggest channels, that kind of coworker word of mouth. So that's how people find us. about 95% of people, always stay on that free plan, and about 5% you end up converting to paid. And then, some percent of those convert to enterprise, or enterprises will even find us and sort of say, okay, this looks really interesting. Maybe try it out on a Gmail account because they're restricted from using it, within their company. But then, go through a security review and potentially buy a larger package.
I mean, as you mentioned, sort of the colleague sharing word of mouth aspect must be really good for inbound. But in terms of sort of outbound promotional marketing material, what are you doing to market Tango?
So yeah, that's kind of the whole, I'd say, good fortune of having a really strong end user focused product that has a generous free version. We don't do, we do spend a little bit on paid advertising, mostly paid search, just to boost our organic search results, and then we do some of these partnerships with creators, so people who have audiences, and they share little reviews on tools, or they share use cases for new software they discovered. And those are the only two areas we spend to find users. Unfortunately, the flywheel kind of helps other people find Tango on its own.
Yeah, very cool. I mean, very lucky place to be in, I imagine. Taking a step back, you did briefly sort of brush over it earlier, but where did the initial sort of conception for Tango come from? Was it sort of a previous business you were working in, or could you delve just a bit more into detail and, the original idea in that sense, if you could?
Yeah, so that gets into our backgrounds a little bit. So I'd actually spent, about 4 years in venture capital at a firm called General Catalyst, who's actually a Tango investor now, later down the road. I'm full circle. And yeah, I went and joined a portfolio company called Livongo, awesome company, for a year. It was half remote, helped them IPO, and just my one really broad observation on, hey, what makes a great company successful is that they really get people and process right. And, so as we were thinking about kind of learning on the job, what is it that those companies like Livongo or, General Catalyst's portfolio, the Airbnbs and Stripes of the world, what is it that they did so well that allowed them to scale and, attract amazing people and just keep all the trains on the tracks and, get people productive really quickly and basically make all that work. So that was my headspace. And then, Ken, one of our other co-founders, he spent about 5 years at Uber. He was there pretty early, and he likes to describe it as seeing all the mistakes that Uber made along the way, too. But also he helped launch a bunch of different cities, right? So when Uber was expanding and they needed to take their learnings from Miami and apply them to, some other city in the Far East, right? They were able to sort of transfer this process and this documentation and stand up, a group of workers really quickly, especially knowledge workers, kind of setting up their systems over there. So, those were fast growing companies that were able to really quickly put in place process and like introduce change and move quickly and innovate. That was kind of like what we looked at and said, hey, there should be more tooling that enables people to be operationally efficient and successful in the same way.
One sort of reservation that springs to mind that you say that is, for example, if I'm an office worker and I think of similar software, maybe like 3 or 4 other competitor alternatives spring into my head as well. So I guess I'd like to ask, what sets Tango apart from competitors and other tools like it?
Yeah, so Tango, on purpose is meant to be as frictionless as possible and getting you from doing your process to having, something that's a finished product that you can share, right? And you think about video recording tools, you think about, even just live conversations, or you think about just snipping tools in PowerPoint and Google Doc, right? Screen sharing tools that might be like that. They all require you to either, get in front of a camera, get it right on the first try, or, go through and kind of individually, edit and crop and draw arrows and write out instructions interrupt a coworker to ask them, what they think about the process, right? So it really is just like a dreaded task of documentation. Nobody really thinks about it as like, maybe there's a better way. But when you see and use Tango for the first time, you're like, oh my God, this is so easy. I didn't need to record voice. I didn't need to record video. It did all the annoying manual work for me. And then I just share the link or, I export the PDF and I'm done.
Bit less frictionless than you could say.
Yeah.
And well, our blog, we write about AI tools and SaaS tools and tech tools. And, it's growing sort of day by day at the minute with the number of monthly visits we get. With our audience in front of you right now, is there anything you'd like to say to them? Anything in particular you'd like to highlight from the tool?
Yeah, I mean, give it a try. It's free. You never have to take a manual screenshot again, teaching somebody how to do something or showing them something on your screen. So everybody's got a use case for it, and just encourage you to give it a try and think of a process that you do semi-regularly and give it a shot.
Cool. I'm also very interested to know, I mean, obviously you're on Product Hunt, that's how we found you, and had a look at the tool as well. But you must be aware of, how many tools are on Product Hunt that, really don't get off the ground particularly, and the ratio between those that succeed and those that sort of never really see success at all. And quite a few people that will be watching and sort of reading the blog version as well, they might be building their own tool. So can I ask you, is there any sort of a piece of advice or insight that you'd give someone just maybe starting out with their own tool that you've never given anyone before, if you could?
The two biggest things when we reflect on, hey, why did this work and strike such a chord, is make it practical and understandable for everybody. So keep the language super simple. Describe what your product does. Don't get into feature benefit or, pain-saving language. Keep it really, really simple, and then have a use case illustrated or have something that everybody can take away from it, and ideally under 2 minutes. They're able to go on and figure it out.
Solid answer. I'm liking it. Could you give us sort of maybe a sneak peek of any features you've got coming up, or any sort of updates, upgrades to the tool that are on the way?
Yeah, so we just launched a huge new experience called Guidance, which basically lets you send a link to somebody, and Tango will, through our browser extension, more or less pop up as a sidekick on their screen and walk them through a process with arrows and boxes and words exactly over the apps and tools that they're working in. It's really powerful. Imagine the best sort of software onboarding you've ever had, and just being able to send that to anybody with a few clicks. We are going to release a way, coming soon, that you can send that without requiring the audience or the recipient, to be able to be in your workspace or sort of be connected with you on Tango. And we think that'll become the way that people communicate software instructions asynchronously, and it'll be really powerful. So stay tuned for that.
I did see a video on the site that sort of was like a basic walkthrough of that, I think, and it did look really cool when I checked it out. Sort of different parts, drawing in and making it quite clear, where to click. If it's maybe a sort of technical tool, it makes it very obvious where to look, basically, which is, look really good, really solid. Just sort of bring it to a close then. Whether this is in your experience with Tango or, in the VC firm or maybe another venture, could you give us the most important lesson that you've learned on your journey as a founder so far?
Most important lesson, I mean, it's not about the idea. It's about your execution, and it's about being shameless with finding people smarter than you, and taking your best strategy that what you're about to go execute on, and just asking people to rip it apart and tell you why it won't work. And then just doing what you say you're going to do. And, great execution is just so, I think, underrated and not talked about enough. And, people celebrate the ideas because they're interesting and they're catchy and they're sort of, turn your thoughts, right? And they help you see the world differently. But great execution is what makes all these companies and all these ideas ultimately have a have staying power.
When it comes down to execution, what specifically could you sort of advise someone, again, that might be building their own tool similar to this? What would you say to them on how to sort of improve their execution? Not worry about the ideas and the planning and the processes, but just get down to the work straight away. What would you say?
Yeah, it's talk to customers. It's challenge yourself to ship something every week. And that's whether you're engineering, you're marketing, whatever department you're in, however you define shipping, what actual outcomes are you, what things are you putting in the world that, the audience or your user base will see. And then it's setting goals. It's like, okay, so we're talking to customers, we're shipping, and we're setting goals. And if you do those three things in a virtuous cycle and you really stay accountable to the meat and potatoes of that process, then you'll be in good shape.
Sounding good. Very insightful stuff. Thank you. I guess we need to call it there for this episode. So honestly, Dan, thank you so much for your time. Been really, really good chatting to you. And a pleasure having you on.
Thanks, Wes. Enjoyed it. And have a good one.
You too. More than welcome. So thanks everyone for tuning in to this episode. We'll see you very soon for the next one, and take care. Goodbye.